All right, let's talk about Standard 15, Substandard D. Describe passage of the 18th Amendment establishing prohibition and the 19th Amendment and establishing women's suffrage. We've talked about suffrage before. It means the right to vote. We talked about in Jacksonian democracy, white men who didn't own property got the right to vote. We talked about the 15th Amendment, even when African American males got the right to vote. Now with the 19th, we're talking about women's suffrage, women's right to vote. 18th Amendment established prohibition, prohibiting people from drinking alcohol. Let's look at this. Our elements are 18th Amendment and 19th Amendment, social and political interactions, and constitutional amendments, changing the Constitution. Let's first look at the 18th Amendment. All right, 18th and 19th Amendments. 18th is prohibition. It's going to be repealed by the 21st. We'll look at that one too. But the 18th and 19th are what were required on the EOCT. 19th is women's suffrage, or the women the right to vote. Here's some women voting here. And here's a prohibitionist or temperance movement poster saying lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. These women, reformists, wanted men especially to stop drinking alcohol. It was immoral and caused a lot of household problems. So let's talk about this prohibition. The 18th Amendment was ratified January 16, 1919. It outlawed the sale, consumption, possession, transportation, or the manufacture of alcohol. So it was a crime to drink alcohol, to even have it, to make it, or transport it. So this comes from that old temperance movement we talked about in the early 18th or early 19th century. Excuse me. This prohibition movement comes from the temperance movement, and it coalesces into this 18th Amendment, this reform movement. Temperance movement coalesces into the 18th Amendment Prohibition Amendment that outlaws alcohol. And so as a result, it's a crime. So in many cities, especially Chicago, these speakeasies, places called speakeasies, they're underground bars, hidden, you know, to keep the police when they come in, or keep police away, or keep people who would turn them over to the police from finding these places. So we're in basements, backroom areas, hidden away, where drinking was allowed and alcohol was served to customers during Prohibition. These bootleggers, these people who transported this in their cars and made it in stills, they became popular during this time period. They used their cars and boats to make homemade moonshine and transport it to these speakeasies and other illegal drinking establishments. And it's here that these bootleggers who are making their cars faster and faster to outrun the police would would sometimes have these competitions where they'd race in a circular pattern to see whose car was the fastest or whose alterations were the best. And so the sport of NASCAR was introduced during Prohibition. And also a negative light is the rise of organized crime. People like Al Capone, who run bootlegging and other illegal activities to get rich around Chicago. And the Prohibition period, Al Capone made a lot of money and became very rich. But during the Great Depression, or actually before, the 21st Amendment was ratified, and it repealed Prohibition in the United States and brought an end to Prohibition. You see here, good old days are back again. Here's a guy here celebrating with some brew. Anyway, the 19th Amendment, which we said before, gives women the right to vote. But it was Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton in 1878 that those two women drafted a women's suffrage amendment to be voted on, or proposed in Congress and voted on by states and convention. And in 1878 it was not carried through with, but 21 years later their efforts pay off on August 18th, 1920, when the 19th Amendment was ratified, giving women the right to vote. So we see here the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote. Okay. A good way to remember the 18th and the 21st is that when you're 18 years old, you cannot legally drink in the state of Georgia. But when you turn 21, you can legally drink. So And that's a good way to remember it, give you some type of mnemonic device to remember that. Okay, so have we met our objective? Describe the passage of the 18th Amendment establishing prohibition and the 19th Amendment and establishing women's suffrage or the right to vote. We have. Watch this over, ask questions in class. Good luck on the quiz, test, and the EOCT.